Is Microsoft Unified Support busting your IT budget? Well, you're not alone. US Cloud is the global leader in third-party Microsoft enterprise support, and they're helping enterprises slash cost by 30 to 50% versus Microsoft Unified, all while getting faster response times from domestic engineers. No offshoring, no long waits, just expert support you can count on 24/7, 365. Trusted by 50 of the Fortune 500 companies and offering senior-level engineers with an average of 14 years experience with Microsoft technologies, US Cloud is the smarter alternative for premium Microsoft support without the premium price. Ready to make the switch? Book a call at uscloud.com to get started today. That's uscloud.com.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well. Their weekend perspective. I'm excited to be with you. The weather is great, and let's just jump right into it. Recording this one just a little bit before Father's Day. I've got to do some travel, some international travel, so getting this recorded a few days before Father's Day. I hope everybody who is celebrating Father's Day is having a good day, whether you are a father or a grandfather, if you're reaching out and saying hi to your dad, whatever it might be. I want to do kind of a Father's Day themed show. And the reason for that is, as I've mentioned on the show a number of times, if you've listened over the years, both Aaron and I have a couple of kids, both college-age kids who are, starting to get out into the real world, into the real workforce, and, kind of making decisions around what they might like to do. For myself, I had kind of an interesting thing. Both my kids are home for the summer, or at least they're around for the summer between years of college, and are beginning to kind of form what looks like what they want to do for school. And so what I want to try and do today is take a couple of kind of interesting observations from sort of where they are, but also tie this together for anybody who is managing young people in their organization, new people in their organization. Don't necessarily have to be young, people who might be new to a role. Found a couple of interesting things from just their search, their journey, their experiences with some of these first jobs, and thought would relay that along here on Father's Day. So I'm going to do that right after the break. Today's show is brought to you by Vasion. Print is one of the biggest drains on IT resources. But did you know there's an easy solution? Just eliminate print servers. They're resource intensive and likely the bane of your IT team's existence. Vasion Print, formerly known as Printer Logic, lets you simplify infrastructure and maximize resources by replacing print servers with direct IP serverless print. Reduce attack surfaces and secure your environment while still enjoying cloud-native flexibility that easily supports a hybrid workforce. Less complexity, less headaches, and less time wasted. And with built-in AI and automations, it's a solution that just works. See for yourself by scheduling a demo at vasion.com. That's VASION.com. And we're back. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, I want to dig into a couple of experiences that I had with the kids. I guess they're not kids anymore. They're adults now, but I still think of them as kids. In terms of, not specifically what they're doing. I don't know if that's relevant to everybody listening, but kind of a couple perspectives on both kind of the fatherhood aspect of, when your adult kids start looking for roles and jobs and what you can do to sort of, help them along or give them some guidance. But then more importantly, a couple of observations I've seen from their journey in, some of these early roles that they're taking that I thought was valuable. And I kind of thought about it as I interact with people who are in new roles, who are, younger in the workforce, or even just kind of, coming into a new job, a new role, and kind of the importance of making sure that you're doing some mentoring, that you're giving them some guidance and, kind of what some of their expectations to be. Let me start from there. So I know for a lot of people, in your first jobs, especially early jobs, pre-university, pre-college, a lot of times you're just sort of a cog in a machine. You're a waiter or a waitress, you're mowing lawns, you're doing manual labor, you're volunteering somewhere, whatever it might be. They're usually just jobs that you are trying to make enough money to put gas in your car, to have money to go on dates, go to movies, whatever your hobby might be. But you don't really care that much. You might get to know the other people that you work with. You probably don't get to know your boss terribly well. In fact, you may have sort of a love-hate relationship with that boss, because really all you're worried about is, am I getting hours? Are they letting me off on the days I want to get off? Are they on your back about, how clean the counter is, whatever the thing might be. But I think as you start to look into your first kind of real jobs, where you start thinking about, what would I like to do in life? And, for many people, they've figured it out by the time they get to college or university. They want to be a a doctor, a lawyer, a surgeon. They want to be an archaeologist, an anthropologist, whatever they might want to be. But for many people, you're not really sure. And the university process, the networking that goes on for, anywhere between when you're 18 to 25 or 30, you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Right. But I think there's a point in time when you start to sort of realize that life is expensive, life has requirements. You're watching your friends go on to, move on to do other things in their life. And you start to realize like, okay, I don't think about a job anymore as like a thing that's a burden. And, jobs aren't always the most fun thing to do, but you think about them as not only something you're going to need that's absolutely required to sustain your life and so on and so forth, but also it becomes part of your identity. It becomes part of who you are. It becomes part of, what, is going to motivate you to get up and go do 40, 50, 60 hours a week in all sorts of conditions at all sorts of times in all sorts of places all around the world. So anyways, got these two kids, I guess two young adults. And I think about this as sort of a tale of two stories. So for the younger one, she's, both doing a regular job, just kind of one of these cogs in the machine sort of hourly job to make money. And she's also doing an internship, which is more in her domain. And so that part's been sort of interesting in that when we were working on the internship stuff, and I had an opportunity actually through the podcast to get her engaged with some people that could help her with her domain. But it was really interesting to hear her explore that first thing as she was starting to talk to them. And, because she'd only taken, a certain number of classes within her major. And she said, I don't even know if I'm qualified for this job. I don't really know how to do all the things that are on the list of stuff that they say they want someone to do. And that was sort of the first opportunity I had to explain to her as I said, it's within these first jobs, it's very unlikely that you're going to know how to do many of the things, even if you did go to school for it. It's, you may have gone to school, you may have done some simulation things, but, a lot of times jobs are going to be very different in the specifics of what they want. So what was one of the first things I had to sort of teach her was that, you're not going to know how to do all the things. You kind of need to, we've all heard the term sort of fake it till you make it. That's something that goes on for most of your life. You have to figure that out. But just to help her understand that, they have expectations for a lot of things. Their expectation is also that you're going to be able to learn. You're going to be able to adapt to, their environment that they're going to be in, that you're going to ask questions, that you're going to, figure things out as you go. But it was interesting that sort of first time that she had enough passion and pride in what she was doing to say, I'm worried that I might not be qualified because I really want to do a good job. I want to be good at whatever I do, because this wasn't like a sport or something else in which you can practice a lot of. There's that concern. So it was interesting to sort of watch that, that experience of being like, I don't have domain expertise. How am I going to figure these things out? And I don't want to let these people down. The second thing that was really interesting to me was, she got involved with this role. She was doing this internship. She's learning about the industry. She's learning about the things that they wanted to have done. And she called me one day and she said, "Hey, I've got to do this first task. I have sort of my first actual deliverable." And she said, I'm really kind of nervous about it. I want it to go well. I want it to go well. And to me, that was sort of another moment where, if I were to sort of, explain what that first task was, it was pretty simple. It was a pretty basic thing that she's probably going to do thousands of times in her career, and that many of us do, or at least did in the first 4 or 5 years of their job, did a whole bunch. But to kind of think back and remember back to that first time when you have to do something that, not only is going to reflect on you, but more importantly is going to be a reflection of the company that you work for, and you want to make a great impression. And, it was kind of a reminder to me that not only as a dad or a father to sort of go, okay, I hope I've done some things that I want to see my kid do well, my young adult do well. But it was a big reminder to me that there are going to be lots of people that we interact with in our day jobs that are doing something for the first time. And just kind of remembering that they really want to do well. They're probably very nervous about doing well. And again, this could be a very simple thing. They might have to present 3 slides. They might have to write up a 1-pager summary of something that happened. It might be an analysis of something, whatever it might be, something that we probably take for granted. It feels like just a sort of a day-to-day task, but just the normal thing of, you tend to, want to hire people that want to be successful, that have high expectations of themselves and want to be successful, and that level of nerve that they have. And so the thought process for me was, what could I do to help? What could I do to kind of teach her about taking the steps to proofread things and double check things, and make sure that you give yourself enough time so that if something goes wrong, if the system that you have to put this in doesn't work or whatever, and just all those little things that you kind of forget about, long into your career, that anybody who's coming in new, anybody who's new and do a new job, a new role, or whatever, is really important to them. That one day is really important. They want to be able to go home that day and say, "Yeah, I did a good job." Right? We got positive feedback from it. Yeah, my boss said, "Yeah, it looks great. I don't have any notes for it." Whatever that simple level of thing is, that's kind of really, really important to somebody, and you may have forgotten about it. And so it was a really good reminder to me that not to necessarily take things for granted, and to remember the context of whoever is working on that thing. The second part of what she's been learning, which I think has been very interesting, is she's doing these two different jobs. Both of them are for entrepreneurs. The paid job and the internship job, both are for basically small businesses, entrepreneurs. And I think she's beginning to understand the relationship that entrepreneurs have with the uncertainty of business, and that that sort of uncertainty, sort of have a plan, try and execute a plan, but always sort of have uncertainty of, do you think I should do this? Do you think I should do that? I've got a choice between A and B. Should I go red or blue? Should we go bigger or smaller? Should we have more offerings? Should we have less offerings? And I think beginning to have that relationship with somebody who is, not only the head of the business, but also sort of the entrepreneur of the business, has been a really good experience. And I think, again, as I relate this to sort of, real world scenarios, I think that's something that you ought to convey to people that work with you, right? Is give them the opportunity to understand, what are the leaders of the company doing? Why are they making certain decisions? What decisions are they looking for input on? Because they don't have all the answers. So that's been an interesting thing to watch. And then the third thing that's been interesting to watch is just the process of her engaging with, day-to-day business people. She said, "Hey, Dad, I have a meeting with the, with the boss once a week. We have a one-on-one thing. We walk through some things." And I said, "Well, I have that every week with the people that work with me and that I work for, and so forth." And she said, "You every single week?" I said, "Yeah, every week. That's just kind of how business works. You've got people that report to you or that you report up to that, kind of want to know what's going on, whether they just want a status update or whether they want to walk through some things or talk through some things." And she said, the other thing that's been interesting is, the more I've gotten to do this, the more they've said, "Well, are there other things you want to do? What would you like to go run with? You should take ownership of that." And she said it's been interesting to watch the process of somebody else beginning to have trust in somebody. Remember that again, that interaction, that level of feedback is really important, especially the earliest stages when somebody's just starting a job, they're just starting something new, they're learning a new set of skills. Getting them off on the right foot, having frequency of meetings, consistency of meetings, being transparent about what they're doing well, what they can improve on is so important to kind of building their confidence, building their understanding of what they should be doing. Because again, you begin to take a sense of, this is representative of me. It's not just a set of work. I'm not just delivering hamburgers, or I'm not just, whatever it is, taking tickets or something like that. So I think for one of the kids, it's been an interesting summer in terms of, again, that growing into a new role, that anticipation of what's coming next, of wanting to do a good job, and then trying to think about that from, say, a manager's perspective and going, how do I foster those things so that their first couple of steps in the role is positive, such that it starts to build that reinforcement about what they're doing. Second, their path has been a little different this year, or at least this summer. And I don't mean different in sort of a negative sense, right? The first one was, mostly positive, a lot of learning things. The second one is on a different path in terms of types of roles she wants to get into, types of jobs she wants to get into. And it's one in which, it's going to require some additional types of schooling and education past this. And so in the interim, she has very much known for a long time that part of doing that is going to require her to get a bunch of hours of experience, like thousands of hours, before she can go on to the next level and step into the next thing. And does very, very well in school and has been, kind of following all the paths that you're supposed to take and so forth. And what's been interesting is her expectation was, okay, I'm following the path, I'm following the trajectory of what's supposed to happen. And as she's been out engaging with potential, internships and roles and things that you can do to start to foster those hours and gain that experience, is they've sort of said, well, it's not that you don't have enough experience. It's not that you're not the right kind of person or you haven't done the right things. Your timing is wrong. right? Essentially, it was we would get you started, but then you're going to go back to school in 12 weeks or whatever it is, a few months, and therefore there's sort of an incongruity to what you're going to do. You're not going to be around. We're going to train you. You may not come back, and it was an interesting takeaway for me for two reasons. One is that, I think especially for sort of high achievers, people that feel like there's a path, there's a plan, they're following the correct steps, they're on the right path for what they're supposed to be doing, they're doing all the things that have been laid out for them as to, how to get from point A to point B to point C. It's been a really interesting thing to watch her need to understand that sometimes, even if you appear to do all the right things, you need to kind of have a plan B in place. Because a number of these organizations have said, well, we would hire you, but the timing's not right. The situation's not right. As I mentioned, she's not going to be here for long enough for them to feel like it's consistent. And the other thing it's sort of made her realize is that, there might come a time in which you need to, look at the situation that you're in and kind of look at a bunch of variables, right? Does the location matter? Does the role matter? What's the importance of getting experience versus maybe, level of salary? And so she sort of had to now go through these variables because I think in her mind previously, again, she was sort of a high achiever kid and sort of always going down the right path and so on and so forth, who I think sort of said, well, I'm going to be able to get the job I want at the salary I want in the location that I want and the timing that I want. And I think this has been a very good experience for her of what do you do when those variables don't work out? When some of those things don't pan themselves out. And, I think it's made her kind of reevaluate not what she wants to do, not necessarily how to get there, but some of those variables. And I think it reminded me of a conversation that Aaron and I used to have a lot when, we were, going through some role changes and job changes. We've been doing this for 15 years. Him and I have both been through a couple of different jobs. And, it was always well, this is what I would love to do. This is what I wish this role would be. I wish this salary was this. I wish it was with this company or this location. And in many cases, it was, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4. And one of them was great, but the other 2 that weren't there were, almost as negative as the one positive was great. Right. And so I think, again, it's sort of a reminder of, as a father, you kind of want to go, yes, this is the path you should go on. And yes, you are doing all the right things. But it's again a reminder that, very rarely in life do you kind of get everything aligned at the right time, at the level that you want, with the people that you want. And you have to start figuring out like, okay, what are the most important things to me? Right? If I take them individually, right? Is it job? Is it job title? Is it location? Is it the company that they work for? Is it the situation, the opportunity? Is it what the next 3 or 4 years could come from? And so again, it's been one of those things where it's a decision that I haven't had to make in a little while, but it's been interesting to sort of watch her go through it for the first time, have her eyes sort of opened to what those variables are, and then start to think about, okay, how would I prioritize these things? Or do I have to change some things in my plan to sort of get me to where more of those variables align to what I want to do? And if I do want to make those changes, what are the secondary, third, sort of tertiary effects of doing that? And so I think it's been a good learning opportunity. She did end up finding something that fit in her thing. She found an organization that was going to be more flexible with her, and she's going through some sort of thought process of, okay, I'm not making necessarily as much money in this, but I'm getting the level of experience that I need that's going to benefit me, 2 and 3 and 4 years down the road. So starting to make those playing the long game type decisions versus kind of, what's the best in the short term type of thing. And again, until you've gone through some of that stuff, you can talk about it all day long, but it doesn't really totally resonate with you. So anyways, a couple of paths in the road, fork in the road for both of them. As a dad, it's been interesting to watch, kind of how they adapt to it. You watch them grow up, you watch some maturity happen, and you watch some adapting to adulthood. So anyways, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Hopefully, some of that are things that either you're going through that you can, pass along to your kids or to pass along to the folks that work with you that you're either leading or people that you're working with. So I'm going to keep it tight. Hope everybody has a good Father's Day. Hope you get a chance to call your dad. If you are a dad, hopefully the kids let you sleep in or do something fun. But anyways, with that, I will wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. Been a great first half of the year so far. I guess we're going to be most of the way through June by the time you listen to this. But wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.